Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Thursday, February 14th, 2019. Happy Valentine's Day, super friends. Good Grief Games. That is the person or entity that I follow on Twitter that did the article about Boros Soldiers, and I believe was the person who went undefeated with it at the GP last weekend, which I think was GP London, but don't quote me on that one. Told you I'd look it up. So, news today. Nexus of Fate banned in Arena Best of 1. Which, by the way, what that means. Like, I remember how they stated it, like the headline of it. But it all comes down to Nexus of Fate has been banned in Best of 1. Not the traditional ranked, not in paper, not in any Best of 3. No real mention of if it's going to be banned in the standard duo for the Mythic Championship coming up at PAX East. But they got time to figure that out. So, thoughts on this. I'm definitely okay with the ban. I really hate that card. There have been many time walk effects over Magic's history. The first, of course, being the original time walk, which is why we call them time walk effects. And I don't believe that one was instant speed. I'm not positive though, but I don't recall any of the more recent, like, since I've been playing, being instant speed, which is a big difference with Nexus of Fate, and then there's the thing where it shuffles back into your library. Which apparently was supposed to be a detriment. And like, oh, no graveyard shenanigan abuse of it. Again, if you wanted to prevent graveyard shenanigans with it, just have it go straight to exile. Just like, if you cast Nexus of Fate, it goes to exile, or if it goes to your graveyard from anywhere, instead it goes to exile, you know. It was a particularly obnoxious beast in Best of 1. Because you either had to have cards strictly geared towards dealing with that match that were useless against everything else, or a deck that was more well-rounded and useless against that deck. Because, I mean, how do you even stop that? Like, what do you do? Counter it? Like, I mean, you can try to get rid of the Teferi so they can't get the Teferi lock, but honestly, it gets to the point where they're just, you know, like, you only have so many turns to try to stop anything they're doing. And once they get the Nexus lock going on, they play the Teferi during the Nexus lock. So you never really get a chance to do anything to it. Because, like, really, without Nexus of Fate, all that deck does is cast Teferi and cantrip. That's like, and, you know, some counter spells, some fogs, but the majority of cards in that deck are cantrips. So yeah, what do you even do there? Do you counter it? I guess you counter it. Or try to burn them out before the lock. Like, honestly, I guess when you know that that's what you're playing against. See, I don't play against it in paper. I don't play against Nexus. I had a sideboard guide for that deck from, you know, Mr. Shear, but I've never played against it in paper. I don't think I've ever played against it in Best of 3. So I don't really know what changes, but I guess when you're aware of it, you save answers and mana for the answers once they get close to Nexus. Like, once they have enough mana, I don't know. I did play against it a lot in Best of 1 and lost to it a lot in Best of 1, and that definitely contributed to most of my rage quits. Like, because it's just so fucking annoying. And it's not even like, okay, well, I'm going to concede because I'm locked out of the game. Like, it just pisses me off that I have to concede. But there was no ban in Best of 3. So why? Maybe because it's not really a thing in Paper Magic or the Best of 3 ladder. Like, it's just not a thing people are doing. But today is not a normal BNR day. So maybe that's why, like, they made the special announcement, because they were doing changes. Like, there's the, oh, you wanted me to go south? Too bad, GPS. Figure it out. Oh, by the way, timing is probably going to be a bit off on this episode. I have to stop at the store. So it's either, like, if I'm kind of finished up when I get to the store, I'm just going to cut it off there. If I'm not, then I'll pause it I'll pause the recording while I, run in, get what I need to get, and record more on the way from the store to the house. So this one's either going to be a few minutes short or a few minutes long. I don't know. But it is Valentine's Day, and while husband and I don't really do much for this holiday anymore, I mean, dude.
Call rejected.
We've been married for 12 years. We've been together for like 14. The kids get really excited about it, so I'm going to stop and pick up. So I think I saw unicorn plushies at the grocery store, and grab something from the bakery and let them feel all special and whatever. But anyway, moving right along. So it makes sense that there was no ban in Best of 3, regardless of if there is intent to ban in Best of 3 or not. I look at this as they may be feeling out if they need to ban in Best of 3, but again, it's just not really been as much of a factor in that forum. Now, I have seen some complaints about there being a separate Best of 1 ban list. And to that I say, like, we've already observed that Best of 1 is a kind of different format. Like, as far as, you build decks differently. You main deck cards that maybe you wouldn't normally main deck in traditional Magic, because they're only good against certain matchups, but against those matchups you kind of need them to win. And in sideboarded games, you're okay losing that game 1 when you have some kind of lock card to all but guarantee you win games 2 and 3. Now, if I remember correctly, this is the lane that goes on, and the other one is the one that ends. I don't know, though. I feel like I always guess wrong. So having a separate BNR list for the Best of 1 format actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it. I've also heard a lot of, more red, a lot of, they banned it in Best of 1 because they're lazy at coding. Because one of the big problems with Nexus is if you get in the mirror, there is really no way for either deck to win or lose, other than one of the participants getting bored enough to concede. Because of the way the time management works in Arena, you don't have the chess clock. Like in MTGO, if there was a Best of 1 format, with the chess clock, eventually one player would run out of time. So it would come down to who can click their stuff the fastest. But in Arena, because they don't have the chess clock thing, you could potentially have games that go on for hours because neither opponent can be decked, because they can tuck their Teferis, or they can keep cycling the Nexuses, Nexi, into the library. But the most popular best of one version of Bye Nexus didn't actually have a win con in the deck aside from decking your opponent. You just having ways to keep putting shit in your library so you never reach a point where you have to draw a card and can't, but your opponent getting there if, they didn't concede when they were locked. And Lantern Control and most prison decks really operate... Oh my god. Did that turn really need to be that slow? Operate in a similar function, but at least Lantern Control mills. So it's not like, oh, well, we're going to do this for 53 draw steps. Sorry, 54, if no mulligans happen. Like, they have a way to accelerate getting cards out of their opponent's deck. This deck? Not really. It just keeps on dirtling. So I think that's what they're talking about with lazy coding, that they didn't bother to do anything to fix that. But if the real issue was that they didn't want to code a fix, but were observant that was really the way to fix that, I'm going to assume most of the players that are complaining about this are Nexus players. Because it usually includes the problem isn't with the Nexus deck, it's with opponents who refuse to concede to my awesomeness. Yeah, go to hell. When your major win con is your opponent conceding, look, I generally advocate following your joy in this game no matter what it is, but if that's your joy, I don't even want to think about the kind of person you are. Like, it just seems needlessly aggravating. But, I mean, that's somebody who's been on the receiving end of Nexus far too many times, and I am definitely biased. I hate that goddamn card. But obviously, if they felt that the problem was, either a code fix or ban it so we don't have to bother doing the code fix, they would have banned it across the board in Arena. I mean, duh. It's still legal to play Nexus of Fate in Arena. It's just not legal to play it in Best of One Constructed. Like, so I don't think that's really a legitimate point of view. I mean, theoretically, in Best of Three, you could end up with the same scenario, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that in Best of Three, you side in, I don't know, actual fucking win cons. So you don't actually really have the same problem. And there was really only one card in the game that you could put in your deck that, I mean, again, I guess you counter the damn spell. I don't really know how you more effectively beat it in Best of Three, but I'm sure there are players that are much more skilled than I that can tell you that. I don't quite rate that high. But yeah, I'm gonna guess Unmoored Ego was the only card that really seemed to be a good insurance policy against Nexus decks that wasn't a dead draw against other decks. Because you're like, oh, I worked really hard to deal with your Lyra. Let's just make sure you ain't got any more of them. Or Oh, it's mono red. Let's take all of your risk factors and light up the stages. Because, like, let's be honest, that's really what... Actually, I want to go this way. Makes mono red good. In the current format is that it's got an astounding amount of card advantage, which mono red doesn't usually have. Yeah, I'm getting kind of sick of getting hit with unmoored egos too, but that, fine. I mean, I can still, try to... Oh, your card's just short. Suck. Is this a... Can I park here? I park here. Alright. I can deal with it. I might still be able to pull out the game. It's just going to be a little harder. Doesn't help me near as much as when the Nexus shenanigans start happening. Alright, I guess this is pretty... this is near about my normal recording, so I'm gonna cut you all off here. So yeah, Nexus of Fate is banned in Best of 1. I think it's a good thing. Feel free to hit me up and let me know if you have a differing opinion. You can hit us up on Twitter at LastPointGames. You can hit me up on Twitter at StrangerSparrow. You can email us lastpointgaming@gmail.com. Or there's a way to comment on these on some platforms. We're Last Point Gaming on YouTube as well, and the podcast posts to there, so you can comment on there if you have anything to tell me. Alright, so that's all I got for today. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.